Hey, everybody, it's Cindy here. Welcome to another episode of the Life Makeovers podcast. I wanted to create a place where we could have real conversations about things that go on in the middle of our lives and hear how other people have navigated these years and share our different nuggets and wisdom about what has helped us the most. And so far, I've had a lot of conversations with other women in midlife, but today I'm breaking the mold because guess what? I invited my daughter onto the podcast. So welcome, Laura Whitmer.
Hello, thank you. It's an honor. It's a privilege. Super excited.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here. Always happy anytime we spend time together, of course. So, so the reason I invited Laura on or asked her if she would be on, it's because we've had conversations before with my audience is actually about dealing with the empty nest, which I know is something that a lot of you out there are dealing with right now. You're living it right now. And or you're anticipating it and wondering what the heck it's going to be like. And so, Laura and I have had our own season of dealing with that and our, navigating our relationship. Let's see, Laura, how long have you been out of high school? Ooh, long time.
Yeah. 2014. So some quick math. Yeah, 8 years.
8 years. And this brat of mine, she went to a school, a college halfway across the country. Can you just feel sorry for me right now, everyone out there? And just imagine what it was like to drop her off at school in New York, upstate New York, when I live in Lawrence. Well, I live in Lawrence, Kansas now, but I was living in another town in Kansas at the time. And that was a very difficult day.
I remember the tears very well. It was an exciting day for me, but yes, difficult for you.
Oh my gosh, I sobbed uncontrollably, everyone.
Yes.
Ugly cry is over. Ugly cry. And actually, it was, I don't know, a funny story, I guess, is, and then we'll back up a little bit. But so she went to Hamilton College in Clinton, New York. And so her father and I had been divorced for a few years by then, but I had rented a van to get all her stuff out there, and he flew out there, and her brother came along too. So anyway, we, when we were done leaving her, so at the campus, we had to be off at a certain hour, like I think it was 3:30 in the afternoon, right? And all parents and families were to be off campus. The last came on. Everyone must go, the freshmen need to go to orientation, leave moms, leave dads, get out of our lives, let them live, right? So the deadline moment came, and so I had to drive the van because I rented it. But I was crying so hard, telling Laura goodbye, that I could not see to drive. And so I was trying to drive with these alligator tears in my eyes. And it was so ironic because your dad was sitting, of course, in the passenger seat up front with me. And I was asking him to help me drive. And this is ironic because one of the ways we annoyed each other in our marriage was trying to tell each other how we ought to be driving. So, it's worse, and fast forward a few years, and I'm saying, David, you got to tell me, am I supposed to stop? Are there any cars coming? And he's like, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, it's not, Mama didn't do so hot.
It was, yes, a dramatic start to the new era.
I don't know if you remember this, but of course, so you had like 5 roommates or suite mates,
Yeah.
All 6 of you are in there, all 6 sets of parents or whatever. There's a ton of people in there. We're all unpacking the cardboard boxes and everything, and plastic tubs, and trying to find everybody's space or whatever. And when we were doing that, maybe some of you moms out there can relate to this. I was sitting in my mind while we're doing this busy work, getting all the girls settled in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did I teach her everything she needs to know? Is she fully prepared for adulthood? What did I miss? What have I forgotten? Was there anything I did? I had this anxious dialogue going through my head. And so I finally just pulled you aside. Do you remember this? I said, Laura, is there anything that I haven't taught you? Do you have any questions? And you were like, well, Mom, if I do, can't I just call you?
Oh.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you just think that it's D-Day. And that's one of the lessons, right? Is that the relationships don't end, but they do need to shift. Whether your kid is going off to the military in another country across the world, or whether they're going to a college 5 miles from home, there needs to be a shift. And what do you think is important for other parents to hear that maybe aren't there yet? What's helpful from your perspective as the young adult child, moving out or having had moved out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, there's a balance, right? So I think it's really, it's always been very important and helpful to me to know that you are a resource and you are there. And if I need to talk about something or need, the wisdom, I can call you and I can reach out to you. And also, not feeling like, oh, every morning, here's a text from Mom being like, what's happening? Do you need anything? What's going on in your life? Like,
how are you now? How are you now?
Right. Right. So I don't know. I feel like it's about kind of like striking that balance and creating a relationship where your kid feels like they can come to you. I think that's another huge thing that's always been a great feature of our relationship, is that I do feel like I can come to you about things, and that's not because of, feeling a pressure to, or a forced communication, I guess.
So keeping balance in the communication. So doing some letting go as parents, right?
Right.
You don't need to know what they ate for breakfast and for lunch and what happened next, or what happened next. And but also like not disappearing, like being accessible, and keeping the door open to discuss life when you want to discuss something. That's coming and going, oh, let me tell you how you should make the following decisions.
Right.
It's always easy when we think we know, and we it's a very odd thing to go from being 100% responsible for a child for years, so much so in the beginning that literally, babies would die without their parents caring for them properly, to letting them go and trying to tell ourselves we don't need to be responsible, or that we it's not our job anymore to be all over it.
I imagine that is hard. I don't have children, so I don't know, but
it's a little
I do like to be in control of things and be involved, so I can imagine it's very difficult.
So how do you create balance? How do you suggest people work on creating that balance? Do you have any ideas about that? But everybody's different, of course. And Laura and I get that. Some of you are going to do it one way and some another, but like in general, like what kinds of things do you think are important to think about in that?
I think one thing that you and I have talked about before, and maybe you've talked about just on the podcast already in general with other guests, is kind of like, not waiting until that drop off day to make the major change.
Yeah.
I think the high school years are incredibly formative and incredibly important, as well as the college or just post high school, whatever those years look like, for anyone. But I think, in high school, I felt like I had more freedom. I mean, I started driving, I had a car, I had a job. Like, there were kind of these, somewhat natural, but somewhat, because of you and how I was raised, that I was able to kind of go off on my own and in certain ways. I mean, there were other ways that you were still very involved, and obviously, I still lived with you and, everything.
Sure.
But I feel like that's a good way to kind of like start. I feel like I have definitely, known people or had friends in high school whose moms, were tracking their phones, like super up on where are you going, who are you with, and like, obviously to some degree, of course, I understand that a child's safety is of utmost importance, but I also think that, just being able to go over to a friend's house and hang out with that friend and not need you to check in while I'm there,
Yeah.
is maybe could be a good starting point for someone whose instinct is not to be that way, if that makes sense.
That makes so much sense. That's what I would call a baby step, right?
Yeah.
The daughter or son is going over to the best friend's house for the 400th time, and you know where they are, these people, and you have a good understanding of when they're due home, or an agreement about that or whatever. Yeah, for heaven's sakes, leave them alone.
Right.
Let them hang out, have fun. They'll be back.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of monitoring going on. I notice even some parents have like trackers of their kids while they're in college, like through their phones and or their vehicles. Now you can get and things, so they know where the vehicle is at all times and things. And we're not here to judge anyone,
right,
but to truly help everybody adjust and let kids become adults, and let our parents be free of that that sense of I've got to monitor everything, I've got to be in charge of everything. These are some of the ways to get there if you want a little more space, right?
For sure. And I think such a huge part of that too is, as the child, like, you want to feel trusted. You want to feel like I'm, someone that, my parent can count on or believes, or, like, I think, and on the other side of that, like, every teenager is going to do something that their parent doesn't want them doing. That is just the reality of the world. And that's going to happen. Like, that is going to happen.
Even
a
couple of things are coming to my mind.
Yeah, I'm like,
memories come back right now. They weren't too bad though.
I was gonna say not too bad. But
we could speak of them here, and it wouldn't be earth-shattering. Everyone,
no, it wouldn't. But I think that's such a big thing too, because to me, I'm like, okay, what does it say when someone feels like they need to be on you every second? It says, I don't trust you to be out there on your own. I don't trust you to make the right decision. And like, we're not all going to make the right decision all the time.
Nor have any parents.
Nor have the parents. And I understand too, it's like you're saying, it's so easy now with cell phones and everything to feel like someone should be available to you at all times. So I think that's a big thing too, is if you put that trust in your kids, I felt like then I could come to you about things, and also I could live my life, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think just because our technology has evolved in such a way that we can have such monitoring, that it doesn't mean it's the best choice. Again, I don't want to judge anyone. I don't want anybody to feel judged listening to this podcast. I think what you and I are saying is what we found works for us and worked so well is to, or in my opinion, it's all worked really, really well, is to have a transitional period as you got older as a child at home, to give you more freedom, more responsibility for yourself, a little more flexibility, I hope. And and then to help you feel trusted by not hovering so much, not trying to know every detail of your everyday or whatever. And and that when it sounds like it's your encouragement to parents that when we let go a little bit and let you live a little bit, that actually makes us more approachable, which I think is a concern. Like sometimes I think moms, especially that I've talked to, have said, well, if I don't act like I care, I do all this because I care. I love them. I care. And so I just, that's why they, I do this, and do this. And so I think sometimes parents worry that kids are going to think, they don't care or something. And I don't know if young adult children feel that way. Do you have an opinion about that, or?
Right. I mean, again, I think, teenagers and young adults, they're smart enough to know when someone cares about them.
Yeah.
And if you care about them, they're going to know. Just like, in unfortunate cases where parents don't care about their kids, those kids know, like you feel that. So I understand that that's a concern, but I also think it's probably even more obvious than you would maybe think. Yeah. I think I could, I could be wrong, obviously, but that would be my guess.
Yeah. Okay. So then you're gone, right? You're gone.
Yeah. And we never spoke again until right now.
Never spoke again. But that's and then you seek that balance in communication. And I'll just tell you, I'm sure you remember, because it floored me. In parent orientation at Laura's school, maybe some of you have already experienced it at other colleges or other situations. We were told as parents not to call them for 3 weeks, for the first 3 weeks, to give them a chance to get in their new routine and get settled in their new lives and things. And when I heard that in that meeting, I thought, if you think I'm going to wait 3 weeks to talk to this child, you are mistaken. However, I have a girlfriend whose mother called her 15 times a day when she left home. Literally 15 times a day. And so I knew for me, and I thought for you, we somewhere in between there would be where we landed. Excuse me, I'm going to get a drink. Why don't you say something brilliant?
Well, I did not remember the 3-week advice. I have to say, I feel like, hearing this, I'm like, wow, Hamilton was really on it with the coaching of the parents, which was totally not on my radar at the time, obviously. But I'm like, no, this is nice. I feel like they were really trying to help you all.
I'll cut the cord a bit and just relax and know that, actually part of what their conversation was is we've got them. Like there are systems in place
Yeah.
to watch out for your young freshmen trying to adjust here. Right.
Yeah.
So, and other situations, the military and so forth, of course, they also have systems in place that they're watching out for the new people and so forth. So
for sure. Yeah.
So what about when you all come back? That happens.
Yes.
Sometimes y'all just come back for your holidays or summer vacations or breaks. That is for those that are students out there, or in military training. Maybe there's some leave and they come back. And then there's also those that come back because they're changing course and they're in between this job and the next job, or this experience and the next experience. How do you think parents ought to handle that when someone's under their roof for an extended period of time after leaving?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I mean, we didn't have exactly that experience. Obviously, I came home for breaks and everything like you mentioned, but I have friends even now who live at home and live with their parents, and I think, again, I don't know, it's interesting, right? Because it's like, at that point you're an adult, you may be employed, you may be in school, living at home, who knows what you're doing, but you have things in your life at that point that are your responsibility, not necessarily the parents' responsibility. And so I guess at the most that can be, I guess, taken into consideration, or kind of held with some validity, I guess, in terms of not immediately reverting back to, well, you're the kid and I'm in charge, so here's this and this, like, I feel like I don't know, I feel like it is a very tricky situation, and I think the clearest boundaries you can have, especially up front, would be the most important, just in terms of just the expectations on both sides, really. I mean, as a parent, like, do you want your kid to pay rent? Do you want them to buy their groceries? Do you expect them to have dinner with you because they live in your house? Like, these are things that I feel like, a parent may want things to be a certain way. The kid might want things to be a different way. And I think the earlier the better to talk about that would probably be the biggest advice, I guess, I would give. I don't know.
I have several clients right this minute, women in midlife who have kids living at home, adults in their 20s and their 30s who've been gone, come back, some never left, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they have different scenarios. Like, it's interesting. Some of them do, they ask their young adults to pay a portion of the rent or cover a portion of the utilities or whatever. And then everybody has certain domestic, like, this one vacuums, that one cooks, this one takes out the garbage or whatever. And then I have other ones who kids are like living like they're 10 years old. Don't have a lot of, don't really have a lot of expectations around them being there. And so it's really interesting. But what I love the most about what you said there is to clarify expectations ahead of time. And I love the example of you sharing that, parents may think you're all going to eat dinner with us every night, and that might not be your vision, like the young adult vision for living at home. It won't necessarily mean, okay, at 6 o'clock I'll be at the table. So we can all talk all hour.
Right.
All the details of my life. Wow.
Right.
Something I remember whenever you kids were around, after you'd been gone, was I did ask both of you if you were not going to come back home overnight, like if you went out with friends or dates or wherever you were going, and if you weren't going to show up again, like, to sleep.
Right.
because I didn't want to wake up the next morning and you guys not be there and me think, oh, they're in a ditch somewhere.
Right. What
right?
happened?
So we did have that agreement, and you guys were great about that. Like you did it, and I didn't ask were you, who were you, what were you doing, where were you?
Right.
Just, okay, you're not coming home tonight, Mom. Okay, see you tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's a good example of both parent and young adult child being respectful of each other.
Right.
And, everybody, it's fair. Like it's reasonable, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it really is like, I feel like you almost have to approach it with the mindset of your roommates.
Yeah.
Even though you're never going to fully feel like roommates, of course, because you have the parent-child dynamic.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think some of the ways you might talk about things with a roommate or plan things with a roommate or say, hey, roommate, if you're not coming home, let me know so that I don't freak out and call every hospital in the city, So.
Yeah. Another thing that's come up with my client, I remember with clients over the years is sometimes parents make assumptions that their kids will come home for holidays or spring breaks or any vacation time they have or whatever, that they will maintain all the family traditions and so forth. And it can be shocking for some parents when the kids don't necessarily do that. So is there what would you say about all that?
I mean, yeah, I feel like, I totally understand why that not happening would be very difficult for a parent. I think, again, I feel like it comes down to the balance. I was thinking of when we were talking about me going to school, like I knew how difficult it was for you that I went far away and how difficult that was going to be. But I also still did it because it's what I really wanted to do. And I knew you wanted me to do what you wanted me to do, or what I wanted to do. I switched that, but you get it. And so I think, again, thinking about like the holidays or breaks or whatever, like, of course, as a kid, you want to feel wanted by your family. And so to feel like, of course, I'm always welcome at mom's. I can always go to mom's for Christmas. I can always go to mom's for, whatever.
Wednesday, Monday.
Right. Anything. Arbor Day. Like
Arbor Day. Arbor Day at mom's. I don't think you made it here for Arbor Day this year.
Yeah. Sorry. But feeling that while also not feeling like, oh crap, if I don't go home, like I'm going to hear about it or I'm going to be in trouble or, like, so I don't know. I feel like the question really is to you in terms of how do you strike that balance?
Well, again, I mean, I think it is our responsibility, honestly, as parents to remember when we were young adults, when we left home, how we felt we were in charge of our lives at that point, and that we could do what we wanted to do or felt, inspired to do, whether that was, go home every year for Christmas or start new traditions of our own elsewhere. I mean, that's what we all wanted to. We were there once. We were where you all are once. And if we can remember that I think that could ease a lot of parents' minds and not take it so personally. If your kids are out there, starting new traditions or no longer, even acknowledging the holidays that you raised them to, as part of their world, or
right.
Aren't living the same lifestyle that you thought they would live, or like your lifestyle, or just whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that it's not about us, what y'all are needing to do with your lives. And again, I think we go back to that transition where, and you're right, some of the other women and I have talked about this. I think most of us have talked about this, honestly, in the podcast so far, is that it is our responsibility to have a life that is not about our children. Yeah. And so we feel like we still have a life, even though we still have children,
right?
But we have a life. So we have something to live for,
right.
Counting the days and crossing off the calendar until we next get to see you, until you next grace us with your
right.
I think a lot of it is about the mindset shift that really is needed for parents to be able to let go enough and to just accept that and embrace it. In a recent conversation I had with Irasa Downing, some of you may have heard that interview. If not, go back and listen to it for sure, because she had a lovely take on the empty nest. She and her husband are like on their second honeymoon half the time. Really enjoying it. And they love their girls. They miss their girls, the whole bit. But she is really seeing it as a time to really get to do things she's waited to do. She feels a sense of freedom. And they're kind of, just really enjoying their relationship in a new way now, because they're not scheduling around the girls and every minute and that kind of thing. And that's so healthy. And probably those girls, I mean, I don't know, I haven't talked to their girls about it, but I bet those girls are delighting in knowing their parents are happy and healthy, and just having good lives at home while they're off doing their things too, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, something else I was thinking as you were talking is this idea that, if, let's say in your kids, second year of college, they don't come home for Christmas, or they don't come home for a break or whatever, because, they're abroad, or they're doing whatever they're doing, that doesn't mean you're necessarily never going to see them on Christmas again, or that the rest of your life is going to be, this time in a kid's life is so changing constantly. Every year is different. You're in a different dorm, you're in a different apartment, you're in a different city, like you're doing a different internship, like everything. There's so much change and so much transition that's happening, especially in the early 20s, I feel like. And I think as much as, a parent maybe can find comfort in, it's not necessarily going to be this forever. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe, it is going to totally change. For like, it's different for everyone. But I think like that's another thing too, where I feel like it could feel very just detrimental to be like, oh God, like now my kid doesn't live here, and for the rest of my life, like I'm alone on Christmas, or like I'm fill in the blank. And it's like, okay, maybe, but maybe in 5 years, your kid's gonna be, starting up their own family, and they're gonna want to bring their kids to grandma's, or like, like there's just there's so many turns that life can take at any time, as you and your listeners know, because that's a big theme on this podcast. And I think that's could hopefully be a helpful thing to remember as a parent, especially when you have a 20-something kid,
Yeah. Oh, I love that you brought this up. And I'm taking some notes for the wrap up episode, that'll be dropped 2 days later. Um, that a lot of times those first few years, and maybe for several years especially, it's such an exploration for young adults often.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're figuring out, what do I want to do and what don't I
Mm-hmm.
want to do, and where do I want
Yeah.
to live, and what do I want to try, and what can I do right now as I'm very, very free, and
Mm-hmm.
some travel extensively. I know you did a semester abroad. You chose college and graduate school and things. Others choose work. Others choose, well, not that you weren't working also on top of it, choose a military
Mm-hmm.
experience, or just whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is often a time of exploration. And so there is a lot of change and twists and turns. And yeah, if we can ride that wave, then that's really helpful to you too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, just, as an example, you had a lot of changes while I was in that time period. So, it kind of
Yes.
maybe more naturally worked out for us in that way versus, the parents who are still living in the same house that they brought the baby home in, and
A
everything.
lot of that out there too, for
Mhm.
sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. So, gosh, what else should we talk about? I think you've said a lot here. Um, was there ever, what was the hardest part for you in your experience with your parents
Mm.
in that phase? I mean, can you think of anything that was like a difficult adjustment for you with it, or I wish my parents did blank, or if we only understood
Mm.
that, or I don't know. I'm just fishing for might be a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
some challenge, because I feel like I know a lot of the challenges on parents' end because of my own, and because
Mm-hmm.
all the people I've talked to about this over the years. But I'm just curious if you can think of any other. Definitely too much communication, like too involved, too
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
too overly involved,
Mm-hmm.
having expectations of you being just like you were when you were little, or having the same kind of rules
Mm-hmm.
and expectations as then. Oh, what about your personal lives? Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm a really interested parent, right? I
Mm-hmm.
really like, I love knowing who your friends are,
Mm-hmm.
what your hobbies are. Tell
Yeah.
me all about your job and your coworkers. I'm that parent, people. I am. I
Mm-hmm.
ask a lot of questions, but it's just, I'm so interested, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But ha- can that come across as being nosy, or, too much? I mean, should parents sit back a little bit more than maybe I
Mm-hmm.
have, or you know what I mean? Because maybe I wonder if young adults sometimes feel interrogated.
Mm.
you know,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think there's absolutely young adults out there who have felt or feel that way, for sure. Um, I think for me, I have always really valued that you're interested in and invested in my friends and in my relationships, my romantic relationships as well. But especially again, like back in high school and stuff, it was always okay to have friends at the house, and you knew my friends and wanted to know my friends, and have been very close with many of my close friends over my life so far. um, and so that, I really value and appreciate, I think. um, but I do think there is something to the idea of, growing up, being out of the house, and having your life take potentially a different shape, or your social life taking a different shape. And, you know, I guess, right, like sort of navigating that as it relates to your parent. I mean, I certainly went through a lot of change when I was in high school and in college, and like, you know, came to terms with my sexuality and came out and really kind of like rethought a lot of things that I wanted from my life, that up until that point I had been like, well, I'm gonna go to college and then marry a man and then have kids with him and like, you know, do all this stuff that totally, it totally is not true for me anymore. And so I think like growing into that and seeing how like my, I guess like social circles have changed or evolved, and being far away and knowing like what my friends here mean to me because they're the people that are here and my family is far away, and you know, all of that. I feel like you've been very a part of that journey as my mom, and I don't think there's been any point where I've felt like, oh, you're too invested or anything like that. But I think, again, just kind of having like the space and the time for that to happen, and not feeling like, you know, if/when those ideas you have about yourself really change, that's going to be met with difficulty from your parent. If that makes sense.
Totally. I think it's yet another adjustment that the parents, we need to be prepared for, because you know, when you have a child, most of us have dreams for our kids, right? We want them, of course, above all, to be happy, but I think a lot of families have visions for their kids and may think that their formula of a great life is the formula that will mean their kids' lives are great. And like some families have businesses to pass down and or careers that they expect their kids to just float right into. So yeah, if I mean, I've heard people say, I want my kids to have kids, they need to be making me some grandchildren. And well, I get why a lot of people want to have grandchildren. I'm thrilled to have grandchildren. But you know, it's not our job to say, go produce me some grandchildren, some kids, so I can be a grandmother.
Right.
So yeah, so again, if we can, I think it's so important to try to delight in watching kids grow up and see who they evolve into. Like it's like, I wonder what the kids are going to do next. Like I remember thinking, oh, I wonder what they're going to want to do after high school. And then thinking, oh, I wonder what they'll do next year, or what's going to be important now, or what kind of jobs are they going to want, or what kind of, you know, really interesting. Another one I think is very difficult for people who've raised kids with a certain religion, when the kids leave the religion or choose another religion or no religion, like that can be a real struggle. And can you speak to that? Because we're in that situation too. Where,
right. Yeah. I mean, I was raised very Christian. I am no longer Christian. I am not religious. You are religious. And yeah, I think that's a huge thing that, you know, I don't know if you necessarily understand why I'm not religious. Maybe you do, but it doesn't matter that you don't understand it, because it doesn't matter that I'm not religious.
Right.
You know, like I feel like there's this, right, just the idea that something, I feel like what I see a lot or hear a lot is like parents feeling like something about their kids like means something more than just that's who they are. You know, like you hear about that with kids coming out and parents being like, well, I never thought my kid was going to be gay. And what does it mean that my kid is gay? It's like, just means they're gay. Like, it does not matter. And I just feel like people can get so wrapped up in that idea. Like, I mean, I've seen this with people who, you know, I know aren't homophobic. I know that they're accepting, and it's still this like trip up. And it's like, but why?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, what did we do wrong?
Right. Or like, what does this
Or
mean?
she doesn't like Jesus, or,
right.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or they're a Republican or a Democrat, or they're just whatever it is, right? And I love what you said, like, parents, let's not make it mean something about us other than our kids are being themselves. They're discovering who they are, or what their preferences are about belief systems, or what works for them now in their lives, or whatever. Yeah. That's really important, not to take things personally.
Yeah.
It's not about us. It is our jobs, all of us, to live our lives. And you are just living your life.
Right.
And I'm living my life. And as long as you understand the decisions you're making, and you understand the life you're living, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing that I feel like people can get very caught up in, is I guess getting distracted by everything else. And it's just like, is your kid happy? Like you said, okay, great, done. Like, you know, like, oh, they didn't do this, or oh, now they're, you know, dating this person, or like, you know, whatever. It's like, if they're good, then just
try to be good with that.
Let's be good. Yeah. Right.
Well, and another thing that has come up in my conversations with other people, other parents, is that when you have problems, you know, you're young adults and you bump up against something, maybe you're having an issue at work, or maybe you're having car trouble, or maybe you're having relationship, you know, disappointments, or just what, it could be anything, or money problems, or whatever. So other parents and I have talked about how we need to let you have your problems, not just jump in and rescue. Like, of course, if you were hanging on a cliff and pull you up, I would run immediately.
Yes.
I would do it, right?
Right.
But most things aren't that kind of an emergency. Most things, you guys just need to find your way as well. Not that we don't care, not that we wouldn't be there, not that blah, 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 but part of being an adult is learning how to manage the unpleasant things of life, the shocks, the sadnesses, the stressors, in the road. And if we just think we're supposed to come in there, or we think we should because we know more, or whatever we think, or we love them so much, we got to get in there and fix it all, then I think it's depriving you of something that it is. Nobody wants their kid unhappy or uncomfortable for 5 minutes. I mean, there is that for sure. But I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think, no, parents, come rescue us? Fix it all. What are you thinking? We don't care. I don't want to do this alone or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of just kind of general life issues, relationships, just the hard emotional stuff, like, trying as a parent to be all over that or help with that, I don't necessarily know is even gonna work. Like, I think, you know, it's like when you have a friend who's making a choice that is bad, and you may say to them, hey, this isn't a great idea. They're probably going to still do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like people are going to do what they're going to do, and then they're going to learn from those things. So I think, if you see I don't know, your kid is involved with someone who you think, not a great person to date, or, something, but they're not in physical harm. They're not being, mentally abused by this person, whatever. They're just, dating someone who's maybe not great. Like they're gonna realize that, and I think being there, again, it's like being there for them is very different than trying to be in control of what's going on with them. And I think, in our relationship, like there's been many, issues I've had with friends or partners or whatever that I have talked to you about, I've come to you about, and you will literally say, do you want advice about this? And that's huge, I think, because it's like, you're not assuming, okay, now I'm here to fix this.
She's inviting me into this problem.
But obviously,
I'm all over it.
Right. Like, but you have perspective, you have distance, you have years more life experience. Like,
yes, I do know all the answers. You don't want them.
Right. Exactly. And just because you give me advice doesn't mean, okay, now I'm going to go do exactly what you said.
You're going to go take it, right?
I mean, I very well could, but I think that's the other thing where it's like, and I've done this in friendships where you see your friend just like dating asshole after asshole, and you're like, come on, let it end. But they just gotta go along that road. And like, I feel like that's very true for the 20 somethings for sure. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. Yes. Yeah, I do like to do that. Like if you guys, tell me something that's going on, I do like to say, do you want my opinion about that? Or do you just want me to listen? And and I think it's important for parents not to make assumptions that even if they do want our opinions, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's best for them to take them, or they don't think it is best for them to take them. So,
right.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, really important point. So it's all about, communication's nice, isn't it? I think communication would help through a lot of these things that people kind of run into.
Yeah.
And just really respecting where people are at. Wow. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you think, oh, we should talk about this, or what about this, Mom, or anything come to mind? Let's pause a second. I'm wondering too. We've said I think we've touched on a lot of important things.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if there's anything else. Can you think of anything else?
I guess I was going to ask you, have you ever heard anything from any of your other friends about their parents, or witnessed anything? And I'm not asking you to name names, or but just, is there anything you like, then you thought, ooh, that's hard to deal with the parent that way as young adults? Anything that any situation, scenario? Because this podcast, I want people to feel, that I really care, and that we're here using our time to try to be helpful. Is there any other scenarios that you've heard about from anybody in your generation? Like, oh, guess what, my dad or mom did, what you do, or what's with these parents, or I don't know.
Oh, that is a great question. I felt like I'm sure that there's examples I could give. I'm just trying to think on the spot. What are they?
We did not plan this interview out, people. We do it, which I'm very grateful for.
I mean, I think that the thing for me, which we've touched on it, but just the idea of a parent responding to something that is, something that's very like a core thing about their kid, not responding well to that is like the biggest thing. I mean, again, to give the coming out example again, it's like, if your kid shares something like that with you and you don't, take it with open arms, you don't take it in stride, or however you want to say it, like, I think that's like that's always the hardest thing for me to hear, because I understand how damaging that is. And I think, just, I don't know. I think that's the kind of thing that it is very difficult for a kid to carry, no matter how old they are. If they feel like, oh, my parent is not okay with this thing.
I've devastated my parent just by being myself, or making this whatever it is.
Right.
Myself, or making some decision that a parent won't like, or whatever, the disappointing the parent or whatever. So if you're a parent out there and you're shocked by something, or you're you're disappointed, we also want to give parents grace, because again, we parents tend to have a vision, have an idea of who our kids are, how their lives are going to look, or we have this whatever. So take a breath, parents. Just take a breath and remember what Laura said earlier, that it doesn't mean anything about you. Whatever your kids are now doing, deciding how they're living, whatever it is, it is about them making their choices and choosing their path that they believe is authentic for them, or important for them, or whatever. And so, and I think another important point around all of that kind of stuff too is to think bigger picture as a parent, if you can. Like, do you want a relationship with your child for the rest of your life?
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
Really, like, really think about that. Is anything they're doing, saying, deciding, any way that they're living really such that it's worth losing them over? I can't think of anything. I mean, even when your brother got in trouble, his freshman year of college, and I don't think he'd mind me mentioning it, but he got caught with marijuana, and, got, at that time, it meant jail, probation, this, that, and the other, right? It wasn't, marijuana's getting a little more acceptable or whatever now, but this was several years ago. And he said, well, now I guess, Mom, I've given you a reason to hate me. And I was like, oh, son, you just have no idea. Like, that's not possible. Would I have been willing to lose my son over him using marijuana and getting caught? I mean, or using it in general? Remember, parents, how much you love these people. And so, it's it's just keeping the bigger perspective, for sure. And I think too, like, somewhat related is again, going back to the trust element of trusting that your kid knows themselves the best. Obviously, as I think there's an instinct as a parent, and is very true. You are one of the people that knows me the best, but I know myself better, and I think that's like, that's another like piece of it too. I feel like, where it's like, I feel like
I've heard about parents that think they know better,
Yes,
even about things that aren't like, okay, yeah, you would know better how to file taxes probably, but like, do
yes,
you know better how to be me? No,
no,
you know.
yes. Yeah, we do have that. I hear that a lot, and I get it because we've lived longer. You know, I'm
Mhm.
55 years old, you're 27 years old. So I think I know the ways of the world, maybe more or
Right.
whatever. I mean, I feel like my experiences that you have yet to have,
Mhm.
and may have and may not have. I mean, so yeah,
Mhm.
I think there is that temptation as parents to think we do know more because we've simply lived longer and so forth. But I love how you sorted that out, that we may have had more life experiences just because we've had more years, but we don't know how to be you, how to be the best you,
Yeah.
what you need the most now, who you are now as adults. Like, we thought we were giving and doing the best for you when you were 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? When it was our decision, when we had to make decisions for you. What's the best school, or what are the best foods to feed this little child, or what are
Yeah.
the best way to make sure they have care, when I'm away doing whatever I'm doing or whatever.
Mhm.
But now you've got to choose for sure.
Mhm.
And that is the adjustment for parents. One
Yeah.
of them is to let go and let you be,
Mhm.
and hope that you create a relationship where the kids do want to come back around,
Mhm. Yeah,
and spend time with you.
definitely. Yeah.
So yeah. Wow, you did say to me once, you need to let me live, Mom. And I think it was because I kept, Laura's lived far. We've lived far from each other ever since she left for college. So for the last 8.5 years, except one summer, I think you came home the first summer
Mhm.
after your freshman year of college. But
Yeah.
ever since then, we've lived in it far from each other. And I think I would made one too many cracks about that, perhaps, or something, like
Mhm.
some where I think maybe I don't think I was trying to make you feel guilty, but I
Mhm.
expressed, I don't know. I often joke with you about moving back to
Mhm.
the West, and
Yeah.
or somebody has to live in Boston, or I make crap. There was one time where you were like, Mom, just you got to let me live. And I
Mm.
thought, oh geez, yeah, and maybe I said it one too many times, or sounded
Mm.
a little too serious, or
Mhm.
I don't know.
I don't remember saying that, but
Don't you?
yeah.
But yeah, you're like, let me live. so, so we got to let them live.
Yeah.
And we want your respect too. We want you to,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
they'll respect us, and,
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah. It's a two-way street, and I think when as a parent you give respect and you give trust, you'll get that too, you know. I think I feel that in all
yeah,
relationships really.
that would
So
be the goal, that if
yeah.
we want to give out what we'd like to receive, and
Mhm.
when people are healthy and at their best, then they can do that, generally
Mhm.
speaking. So
Yeah.
okay. Well, gosh, Laura, I just thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your perspective and your wisdom, and just being willing to hang with your mom and these listeners and about this subject, because it is a tricky one for most people, I find.
Mhm.
It might surprise you. It probably comes up every single day in my business with someone.
Mhm. Mhm.
It really does. So I know
Yeah.
hard. So I appreciate all your effort to give us more of a perspective on your, the young adult. It's hard to even call you a child. That's the other thing is with parents, you're always our babies, but we
Mhm.
babies.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
I still feel not like a full adult for sure.
when you come home though, do you feel, I call it home, you coming
Mhm.
home, even though I
Yeah.
know you have your home, have a home.
Yes. Yes.
You and Mac have a home.
Mm-hmm.
But I say, when are you coming home?
Mm-hmm.
See, even that little bitty thing there,
Mm-hmm.
that's innocent, but is it annoying, or is it, do you
No,
feel like, oh no, you're just,
I don't
what?
think it's annoying. I know what you mean.
Lived in this house that I live in now. I mean,
Right.
I've lived in several homes since the last one you lived in. And so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not annoying, that language.
No, I still think of it as home. I just have a lot of homes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's very nice too. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Well, any last word, Laura, before I wrap it up here?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, happy to be here, happy to share. Hopefully something was helpful. And yeah.
Me too. Yeah. Well, thank you again. And thank you all out there listening. I really appreciate it. I hope this was really helpful. For sure, let me know at Cindy D. Whitmer at cindydwhitmer.com. If you have any questions or have any concerns or things you want to talk about more. You can also check out my website at cindydwhitmer.com to understand more of what I've got going on with my coaching and speaking and so forth. And you can also sign up for my free blog there. And and please spread the news about the podcast and let people know if you found value here and you think somebody else might find value. Please spread the news. And I will talk to you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.